Mark Reynolds woke to the sound of frantic barking. His heart pounded as he sat up, wiping the sleep from his eyes. Rex never barked like this. Not the usual excited yips when a rabbit wandered into the yard. Not the deep, authoritative woof he gave when the mailman approached. This was something else, something raw, desperate. The old house creaked as Mark swung his legs over the side of the bed. He reached for his phone, **3:12 a.m., **. The barking hadn't stopped. If anything, it had grown more urgent. Rex. His voice was hoarse from sleep. Downstairs, the scratching of nails against the back door was frantic. He grabbed a flashlight from his nightstand and made his way down, the wooden floor cold against his bare feet. As soon as he reached the door, Rex's large frame slammed against it, panting, whining, his eyes wide with something close to panic. "What is it, boy?" Rex didn't even glance at him. His attention was fixed on something beyond the yard. Mark flicked on the flashlight and peered outside. Moonlight bathed the backyard in pale silver, stretching shadows against the overgrown grass. Everything looked normal. Except for the shed. Mark's stomach twisted. The shed had belonged to his father, a relic from a time when the man spent long afternoons hammering, fixing, building. When he passed away, Mark had locked the place up and never looked back. There was no reason to. But now, the shed door was slightly ajar. The lock should have kept it shut. The lock that Mark was certain he had placed on it years ago. Rex let out a low, guttural growl. Mark's pulse hammered as he stepped onto the porch. The flashlight trembled in his grip as he scanned the yard, searching for any sign of movement. Nothing. No rustling leaves, no shifting shadows. But something was wrong. He could feel it, ***. Rex bolted toward the shed, barking wildly. "Hey! Stop!" Mark hurried after him, but the dog was faster, reaching the entrance before him. Instead of charging inside, Rex planted himself in the doorway, muscles tensed. A deep, guttural snarl rolled from his chest. Mark hesitated. He could barely see past the cracked door, but the beam of his flashlight caught something, *** scratches. *** deep, jagged claw marks along the wooden frame. His breath hitched. An animal? But no animal should have been able to get inside. The shed was locked. Rex snapped at the air, tail stiff, ears pinned back. His hackles rose, every fiber of his body screaming, "Do not go in." ***. Mark swallowed, shivering despite the humid summer night. Maybe it was some raccoon that had gotten in and couldn't find its way out. Or a stray dog. He just needed to open the door, let whatever was inside run out, and go back to sleep. He stepped forward. Rex lunged. Mark barely had time to react before 60 pounds of muscle and fur slammed into him, knocking him back. He hit the ground hard, his flashlight rolling from his grasp. "What the hell, Rex?" The dog whined, circling him, nudging at his chest as if trying to push him away. Mark rubbed his sore elbow, frustration bubbling up. This was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a former firefighter. He wasn't about to be intimidated by his own damn shed. All right, he muttered, pulling himself to his feet. He dusted off his sweatpants and grabbed the flashlight. "You win. I'll check in the morning." Rex didn't relax. Even as Mark backed away, the dog remained rigid, staring at the shed like it might bite back. The wind shifted. The shed door creaked open a fraction more. And in that moment, Mark swore he saw something. A glimpse of movement. Something shifting in the dark. His mouth went dry. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, forcing himself to breathe. "It's nothing. It's just shadows. Just your imagination." Still, he couldn't shake the feeling creeping over his skin like icy fingers. As he turned to head inside, a sound cut through the silence. A thud. Low. Heavy. Muffled, like something had fallen inside. Mark froze. Rex let out a whimper, his whole body quivering. Another thud. This time louder. Closer. Mark's fingers hovered over the flashlight's switch. He should go inside. Call animal control. Anything but stand here like an idiot. Then, silence. The stillness was worse than the sound. After what felt like an eternity, Mark forced his legs to move. He turned, stepping backward toward the house. One step, then another. He never took his eyes off the shed. Rex stayed beside him, his body pressed close, herding him like a sheepdog steering livestock away from danger. They reached the porch. Mark fumbled for the doorknob, stepping inside. The second the door shut behind him, Rex collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. Mark stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter. He didn't realize he was shaking until he reached for a glass of water. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe the wind had knocked something over inside. Maybe. He looked at Rex. The dog's eyes were still locked on the back door. Watching. Waiting. Mark swallowed hard. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe, for the first time in years, the past was waking up. The morning sun did little to dissolve the unease curling in Mark's stomach. He stood on the porch, staring at the shed. In the daylight, it looked like nothing more than a forgotten structure: weathered wood, peeling paint, a slanted roof weighed down by years of neglect. But he knew better. Rex sat beside him, tail stiff, ears pricked forward, his amber eyes locked onto the shed as if expecting it to move. He hadn't left its side since last night. Even now, he let out a low whine, nudging Mark's leg as if pleading with him not to go near it. Mark exhaled. He needed another set of eyes on this, someone who wouldn't dismiss his gut feeling as paranoia. He pulled out his phone and dialed. It rang twice before Jason answered. "You better be calling with good news about beer and barbecue." Mark forced a chuckle. "Not exactly. I need you to come over." Jason's voice sharpened. "What's wrong?" Mark hesitated, glancing back at the shed. "Something's off. My shed, it's been locked for years, but last night it wasn't. I think something's inside." A pause. Then, "Be there in 10. Jason pulled up in his truck, stepping out with a crowbar slung over his shoulder. His expression was skeptical but not dismissive. That was what Mark liked about him. He didn't mock things he didn't understand. He took one look at Rex, still rigid with unease, and frowned. "Dog's spooked." "Yeah." Jason nodded toward the shed. "All right. Let's crack it open." Mark hesitated for only a second before following. Rex whined, but Mark gave him a reassuring pat. "Stay." The lock was still gone, but when Jason gave the door a push, it barely budged. Something heavy was wedged against it from the inside. Jason braced himself and shoved harder. The door groaned before giving way with a sickening scrape. The first thing that hit Mark was the smell. Not just dust and old wood, but something metallic, damp. Wrong. Mark covered his nose and stepped inside. Sunlight filtered through a broken slat in the roof, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the stale air. The workbench was still cluttered with his father's tools, rusted from years of disuse. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old cans of paint, jars of screws, and a few warped wooden planks. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. Then Jason muttered, "What the hell?" Mark turned. Jason stood over a pile of rags soaked dark with something that had long since dried. The stains were a deep, reddish-brown. Mark's throat tightened. Blood. He forced himself to stay calm. Maybe an animal got in here somehow. Jason didn't look convinced. He crouched, nudging the fabric aside with the crowbar. That'd have to be one hell of an animal to drag this much blood in here. Mark's stomach churned. He turned away, his eyes landing on the wooden floorboards. Something about them made him pause. The boards in the center of the shed were newer. Not by much, but enough that the wood hadn't aged the same way as the rest. The planks were arranged in a crude square, as if covering something up. Jason noticed too. "You seein' this?" Mark nodded, swallowing the unease in his throat. "Help me move this workbench." The two of them strained against the heavy wooden structure, pushing it away from the center of the room. The moment they did, Mark saw it, the edges of a hidden compartment. Jason exhaled sharply. Well, that's not normal. Mark dropped to his knees, running his fingers along the gaps between the boards. They were nailed down haphazardly, some sticking up just enough to get leverage. Jason handed him the crowbar. You want to do the honors? Mark hesitated, then wedged the tool beneath the first plank and pried it up. The nails screeched as they tore free. The smell intensified. By the time they had lifted the last board, Mark's skin crawled with an unsettling certainty. Whatever they were about to find, it wasn't going to be good. A dark, hollow space gaped beneath the floor. And inside it, bones. Jason cursed under his breath. Mark could only stare. The skeleton was small, fragile. The bones were old, dry. No clothing, no signs of an animal carcass. Just human remains. Mark's head spun. His father had built this shed. His father had locked it away. Had he known? Had he put these boards down himself? Jason broke the silence. Mark, there's something else. Mark turned, following Jason's gaze. Something was wedged against the wall. A rusted metal box, nearly buried beneath a pile of old tools. Jason reached for it, dragging it into the light. It was heavy, locked shut with an old clasp. Mark hesitated only a second before prying it open. Inside was a stack of papers, brittle with age. On top lay a journal. Mark's breath caught. He recognized the handwriting. His father's. He flipped through the pages, his pulse hammering. Entries scrawled in uneven lines. Frantic. Disturbed. I tried to stop him. I tried to make it right. She was so scared. I told her to stay quiet. I told her I'd come back. I failed. Beneath the journal was a locket. Mark lifted it with shaking fingers, prying it open. Inside was a photograph of a woman. Her face was familiar, but Mark couldn't place why, until Jason swore under his breath. Mark. That's Sarah Mitchell. The name struck like lightning. Sarah Mitchell. The woman who vanished 30 years ago. The woman the whole town suspected had been murdered by her husband. Mark's breath came in short, sharp bursts. His father had known something. Rex whined at the door, scratching anxiously. Jason stood, eyes dark with realization. Mark, we need to tell someone. Mark clenched the locket in his palm, staring down at the journal. His father had carried this secret to his grave. And now it was his to bear. The air inside the shed had thickened, suffocating and heavy. Mark's hands trembled as he held the journal, its brittle pages curling at the edges, stained with age and... He couldn't help but wonder. Guilt. Jason ran a hand through his short-cropped hair, pacing in the narrow space between the workbench and the hole in the floor. His boots scuffed against the wooden boards, the sound sharp in the suffocating silence. Mark, this isn't just some forgotten piece of family history. This is evidence. Real, hard evidence. Mark barely heard him. His gaze locked onto the words scratched into the yellowed paper. His father's handwriting erratic, desperate. I should have stopped him. I should have done something. But it was too late. I had to bury the truth. I see her in my dreams. She waits for me. His father had never been an emotional man. He was strict, distant, but not a killer. At least, that's what Mark had always believed. He swallowed hard. We don't even know for sure that these bones are hers. Jason shot him a look. Come on, man. The timeline fits. The missing woman, the journal, the hidden grave. What more do you need? He motioned toward the locket. She's right there, Mark. Mark exhaled shakily. It was too much. The shed had been locked for years. His father had been dead for nearly a decade. And yet, it felt like the man's shadow still lingered here, pressing against him like an unbearable weight. Rex whined at the door, his nails scratching against the wood. His behavior hadn't changed. He still refused to go near the open hatch in the floor, his body tense, his ears twitching at sounds Mark couldn't hear. Something about that unsettled him more than anything. Dogs didn't fear the dead. Jason let out a breath. Look, we should call this in. The cops can. A sound stopped him cold. A creak. Both men froze, their breath catching. Mark's pulse slammed against his ribs as his eyes darted toward the source. The shed door, it was moving. Not from the wind. Not from Rex. Something outside. Jason reached for the crowbar again, stepping in front of the hatch. His expression was different now, no longer skeptical. Just wary. Mark forced himself to move. Slowly, carefully, he closed the journal and tucked it under his arm. His free hand hovered near the rusted box, as if it might hold some kind of answer. Another sound. A footstep. This time, it came from just beyond the wall. Rex let out a low, menacing growl. Jason shot Mark a glance. Tell me no one else knows about this shed. No one, Mark whispered. Not since my dad. A pause. Then, a metallic jingle. The distinct sound of a lock being handled. Mark's stomach clenched. He had spent the past 12 hours trying to convince himself that this was nothing more than the past clawing its way to the surface. A decades-old mystery. A buried tragedy. But now, standing here with his father's words burning in his mind and an unseen presence lurking just beyond the door, he wasn't so sure. Jason lifted the crowbar higher, his voice a low murmur. We need to move. Now. Mark nodded, heart hammering. He shoved the journal and locked it into his jacket, snapping the rusted box shut. Whatever was outside, whoever, they weren't going to wait forever. Then, as if to confirm his fear, the door handle rattled. Harder this time. Rex barked, his body rigid. Jason shifted, angling toward the back window. There's another way out, right? Mark hesitated. The window. His father had sealed it years ago after a storm had shattered the glass, but if they could break through. The handle twisted. Whoever was outside wasn't knocking. They were trying to get in, Jason didn't wait. He crossed the room in 2 strides and slammed the crowbar against the boarded-up window. The wood splintered on the first hit, cracking at the edges. Mark rushed to help, wrenching at the loosened boards. His pulse roared in his ears, adrenaline surging. He could hear footsteps now, slow and deliberate, circling the shed. Who the hell was out there? Jason struck the window again, and this time, it gave. Go, Jason ordered. Mark climbed through first, his feet crunching against the dry grass as he hit the ground. The moment he landed, he turned to help Jason through. A noise stopped him cold. Not a footstep, not the wind. A voice, low, rough, just beyond the shed. Mark. His blood ran ice cold. Jason dropped down beside him. We move. Now. Mark's breath was short, ragged. His body screamed at him to run, but his mind was still trapped in the horror of that single whispered word. Because the voice? It sounded like his father. Mark's world tilted. His breath came in short, ragged bursts, his chest tight with something primal, fear, disbelief, confusion. His father had been dead for almost 10 years. He had buried the man, mourned him. And yet, that voice, that impossibly familiar voice had whispered his name from the darkness beyond the shed. Jason grabbed his arm, yanking him back into reality. Move. His voice was low, urgent. I don't know what's happening, but we're not sticking around to find out. Rex was already ahead of them, his ears flattened, tail stiff with distress. He circled back, nudging Mark hard in the leg as if to say, _run, you idiot, _. Mark forced his legs to move. Jason took the lead, cutting through the tall grass behind the shed, moving fast but careful to stay low. The night was thick with the sounds of insects, the rustling of trees. But beneath it all, Mark swore he could hear something else. *** footstep. Slow. Measured. Following. ***. Who was out there? What the hell was happening? They made it to the tree line, ducking into the shadows. Jason turned, eyes scanning the shed. His grip tightened around the crowbar, his breathing controlled but tense. You heard that, right? Mark nodded, still trying to swallow the lump in his throat. Jason's jaw clenched. Tell me again, who else knew about that shed? Mark shook his head. No one. Not since my dad. A pause. Then Jason muttered, Yeah, well, someone sure as hell knows now. Rex let out a low growl. Mark followed his gaze back toward the shed, his pulse spiking. The door, the same one that had rattled moments ago, ***, was now wide open. ***. A dark void yawned in the doorway. No one was there. Jason exhaled sharply. We need to call this in. Mark fumbled for his phone, his hands slick with sweat. He barely registered the glow of the screen as he dialed. The line rang. Once, twice. Then a click. County Sheriff's Department. Mark opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a sound cut through the night. A deep, ragged breath. Right behind them. Jason spun first, swinging the crowbar in a wide arc. ***, but it met only empty air. ***. Mark staggered back, pulse thundering in his ears. He could still hear the breathing, low, rattling like someone struggling for air. But there was no one there. Nothing. Only the trees. The wind. The memories clawing at the edges of Mark's mind. Jason swore, scanning the darkness. We're leaving. Now. Mark didn't argue. They bolted, cutting through the woods toward the house. Rex ran ahead, his body tense, his head whipping back every few seconds as if making sure they were still behind him. Mark's legs ached by the time they reached the porch. He fumbled with the keys, his breath shallow. Behind him, Jason stood rigid, eyes still locked on the tree line. Something was there, he muttered. Mark didn't want to think about it. He pushed the door open, ushering Rex inside, then slammed it shut. Jason followed, locking it behind him. Only when they were inside did Mark dare to breathe. Silence pressed against them. The house felt too still, too quiet. As if it, too, was waiting for something. Mark ran a shaky hand through his hair. This doesn't make sense. Jason paced near the window, peering out through the curtains. I don't know what's happening, man, but you need to tell someone about that body. About the journal. Mark hesitated, his gaze drifting to the table where he had tossed the rusted box. It sat there, unassuming. But inside, ***, his father's secrets lay waiting. ***. His chest tightened. Jason's voice softened. Mark, you think your dad was involved? The words stung. His father had been a hard man. Stern, distant. But a killer? A man who would bury a body beneath their shed? Mark swallowed hard. I don't know. Jason exhaled. Look, we don't have all the pieces yet. But this. He motioned toward the journal, the locket, the bones still buried in the shed. This isn't just some old mystery. Someone still cares about it. Someone doesn't want it coming out. Mark knew he was right. Whoever, or whatever, had been out there tonight, they weren't finished. A sudden, sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Rex's ears shot up. He let out a low, warning growl, his body stiff. Mark's pulse spiked. No one came to his house this late. No one should even be out here. Jason gripped the crowbar tighter. The knock came again. Slow. Deliberate. Mark moved toward the door, pulse hammering. He hesitated, then pulled the curtain back just enough to see. Nothing. The porch was empty. The night stretched out, still and endless. Yet someone had knocked. Mark's skin crawled. He took a step back. Then, ***, a whisper. ***. Right against the door. Low, familiar. The same voice from the woods. I tried to stop him. Mark's blood turned to ice. Jason grabbed his arm. We're not staying here. Mark barely heard him. His heart pounded against his ribs as he stared at the door, the words from his father's journal flashing through his mind. I tried to stop him. His father hadn't been confessing to a murder. He had been warning him. And whatever his father had feared back then, it was still here.